Hello everybody, just wanted to do an article on good versus great property developers. I first thought that I'll write an article, but now as I started going, I thought it would be much quicker and much more interesting if I just explain the differences between a good developer and a great property developer. So I've got a few things that I wanted to go over, which basically marks the difference between what a good developer does and what a great developer does. And our aim is that we all want to be great property developers. So let's look at what is the difference between good and great. So the first thing is good is the enemy of great. So always remember that there was a book written by Jim Collins called Good to Great, which was a fantastic book and very corporate book, and what was a very bestseller. Basically, I haven't taken anything from the book, but whole premise of the book, the whole underlying theme of the book is actually telling people that good is the enemy of great. So if you want to be great, you got to give up good, in a nutshell. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. When I got into property development, before I actually got in there, I was working for Service Stream as a contract manager. I was getting what, $80,000 a year, and I actually quit my job. And the reason I quit my job was because I asked myself that if I work really, really hard in this company, what's going to happen the next year? What is my uplift? And I wasn't very happy with the answers that I was coming up with. So I decided to quit my job and get into property development. And I'm not suggesting that everyone should follow suit. I'm just telling you what I did, and it was tough, but now it's much better, and now I'm doing all sorts of different deals. All sorts of different deals are at different stages. Some of them are finished, some of them are construction is halfway through, some of them construction is about to complete, titles are about to issue, and all sorts of things are happening in my life now. But for the first year or so, it was quite tough. But I wanted to take this video and just introduce you to what good and great is. Before I get into more details about good and great, I wanted to share with you an email that I sent to my mentor when I got into property development. And I had a mentor, and a lot of people might know him in the industry because he's very famous. His name is Bob Anderson. And I actually, before I even started in his program, I sent him an email. And I'm not saying that where I am today is a mistake or is a fluke or whatever. But what I'm saying is that before I started with him, I did send him an email. And I'm just sharing that email with you. And I've blurred out some of the sections that I don't think are worth sharing. But I just want you to pay attention to this bottom part where I talk about, this is an email that I sent on 20th of September 2012 at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said to him that even before I sign up with you, I can assure you that sooner or later I will be one of your student success stories. And Bob replied to that, looking forward to that. And I had said to him that that's my level of commitment and my drive to move forward. So my question is, when and how can I begin? So this is even before I actually started. This is in 2012, and if you look at it, it's 20th of September here, and I can't believe, trust me, I didn't plan on this, on doing this on 20th of September, but I just looked at this now, and I looked at 20th of September. This is exactly 3 years ago. Exactly 3 years ago, 6 o'clock in the morning, I actually sent this email out to my mentor Bob Anderson, and before I joined with him. So all I'm saying is, to be great, you just have to be passionate about things, and you just have to know that this is what you want and go after it, because just like your life depends on it. And why? Because it does. Because if not this, then what? So yeah, this is the difference between good and great. So let's look at some other things. Sometimes you have to give up the good to be great, as we discussed, And what is the good to great foundation? So if I look at it, the first thing is that you got to discipline yourself. You got to discipline your thoughts. You got to discipline your action, and you got to build greatness that lasts. And you got to think out of the box. So discipline yourself. This basically means you got to keep all your commitments. So if you commit on something, make sure you follow through. And discipline your thoughts. You have to stop being negative. One negative thought actually attracts 5 corresponding negative thoughts. So make sure that you're not talking yourself down, or you're not talking negative all the time. Or if you start on something, you'll say, oh, I'm gonna fail and it's not gonna work out, or it's bad, the market is down. And don't do all of this, because when you do something and you've already got an underlying negative tone to it, you will find a way to make it true. So don't do that, and take disciplined action. I call it TNT. My team that I work with, there's a builder, there's a project manager, and I also have a cost analyst that's on the team now that I work with. And I always talk to them about TNT, and I call it TNT is like gunpowder. It's an explosive. But our TNT stands for today, not tomorrow. And what that means is that if you don't take an action on something today, tomorrow it will actually become TNT. And that's how this industry is. So you got to be on top of things at all times. So it's always TNT when you are developing. You got to build greatness to last. What does that mean? You got to follow the system, tweak it along the way, and continually grow and learn. This system that I put together, which is the property development system, and I tweak it every day. And as I tweak it, as I improve upon it, I change some steps. I maybe switch some steps up and down, so on. And I constantly tweak it just to find a way so that it's better, quicker, and more easy to follow. Think out of the box. You got to be creative, especially if you want to do no money down deals. Not only you need to know what the rules are, but you also be very creative in structuring deals, finance, and how the whole deal is going to come together. So there are lots of moving parts in a deal, and you've got to know all of them, and you got to know the rules, and you got to be creative. So most of the good developers do this, and I call it self-sabotage. So what does that mean? That means all the good developers, let me just explain you what self-sabotage is. It's basically behavior is said to be self-sabotaging when it creates problems and interferes with your long-standing goals. So, and it happens when part of your personality acts in conflict with another part of your personality. So you might be saying from the outside, yeah, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and you get into a deal, and then you start sabotaging yourself. You start talking yourself out of it. And I see this, I've got investors who have invested with me in the deal, and they've gone through this roller coaster with me, and I've held their hands, we walked together, and they've understood how it can be very what word do I use to actually describe it? It can be very emotionally taxing when you're actually in a deal. Forget about your money side of it, but it can be emotionally very taxing, because when you are about to take that bigger step, you want to have somebody right next to you, holding your hand, telling you what to do, and someone who's done that before, who knows how this roller coaster works, so that they can tell you, yeah, we're expecting a high here, we're expecting a low here. It doesn't matter, that it happens in every deal. So these are the things that you got to know at. Some of the self-sabotaging behavior that good developers go through is usually is when you have fear of success. You dwell on too many options. You quit when going gets tough, or you don't take your money situation seriously. You let others waste your time, and you avoid the hard work, or you don't take responsibility, and you look to blame somebody. And it's like that. And a lot of people, they would rather get even than get ahead in life. So just remember that Don't try and get even, just try and get ahead in life. You tell yourself negative stories. You spend all your time planning. You know, a lot of, I call this paralysis by analysis. So you don't cut yourself any slack, or that means you keep telling yourself that you're not good enough or you haven't done this properly. So don't beat yourself up. I have been guilty of that, and for a long period of time I used to I used to talk myself down. So don't do that. A lot of people do, and there's no fun in that, and there is no you don't it won't get you anything. It won't help you achieve anything. So make sure you don't do that. And this all stems from having a poor self-image. So make sure that you work on that, and you don't indulge in self-sabotaging behavior. On the other hand, if you are a great developer, they don't do any of these things, and they understand that there are two kinds of fears. There's either a fear of failure, and there's a fear for success. You know, what if things work out and I can't handle them? So, but let me tell you what I think, and because I've gone through all of this, and I'm just telling you what I think. And the way I work is that I only believe in two things. One is good karma, and everybody understands what karma is. And the second thing that I believe in is universe. So good karma could also be good deeds, but I like to call, apart from good deeds, I like to call it consistent action. And I call it consistent action because that's my karma that I've got to do every day. That's TNT. That's today, not tomorrow. And I believe in universe. Now you can call universe God, Jesus, a higher power, almighty, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it universe. And I believe that the universe must know that you really, really want something, and it will deliver it to you. So you've got to show the universe that you really want something, you are going after something, and that's what you want to achieve. And all your actions are in line with what you want to achieve, and the universe can see that. And if the universe sees that, and that you're not serious about achieving something, you won't get it. It won't give it to you. So the universe must know that you really, really want something, and you are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that. Most of the good developers that I come across, they have no clue where to start. And why does that happen? Basically, their decision making is is based on a few things. Like, for example, everyone's developing here, so should I. Everyone's buying here, so should I. And everyone's investing in property, so should I. So there's no harm with that approach. And the thing is, very often they'll be right, because it's called, if you study marketing, it's called the herd mentality, where everyone's running there, that's where I'm going. And some of the people who get in early will get it right, because that's how the market's moving, and they've actually managed to ride the tide. But that's being a good developer. But if you want to be great, you've got to be able to understand and make sure that you are right every time, and where you're going or what you're doing is all researched and done properly. So if you don't know where to start or where to look, you will never start, which is basically paralysis by analysis. And there are things like, why Melbourne, or why Sydney, or why Adelaide, or why not Perth? So there are questions like what's happening at the macro level, and there are questions like what's happening at the micro level. Most of these good developers who base their decisions based on everyone's developing here, so should I, everyone's buying here, so should I, they can't answer any of these questions. It's because they don't have the ability to actually drill down to the suburb level to understand exactly what's happening and why are they doing what they're doing. So most of them They can't do that. Another thing that good developers do is that they listen to negative media. And what happens is they're all the doomsayers, the confidence killers, and they basically, the media, you got to remember, can only sell a negative news. It's all about bad news sells, and nobody wants to listen to the good news. And every time they come back with the bad news, it kills the confidence and the market starts dying. So just understand how the market works and how it works. Now, another thing that they do is that they listen to the economists too much. And I'm not saying all economists are bad. Countries employ them, banks employ them, a lot of big developers employ them. But I'm saying that you've got to listen to the economists with a pinch of salt. And I'll give you some examples here. But before I do that, I wanted to ask you some questions. Things like, have you ever met a rich economist? If an economist knew everything, wouldn't they be the richest people in the world? But apparently they are not. I don't think they even come in the top 1,000 richest people in the world. None of them would be an economist. So, an economist by definition is someone who will know tomorrow why the things they predicted yesterday didn't happen today. Now, I saw this, and this is not my definition. I actually got this off from one of the property books that I read. And if you Google it, Urban Dictionary defines economist as one who, starting from a position of overeducated and underinformed logical supposition, commences making incorrect and devastating judgments about the functioning of the world, and then formally codifies their misunderstanding in dogmatic and arrogant absurdity. So if you ever wanted to understand what this is, you should go to this link and look at this definition. Now, I'm only young, and I haven't been in Australia forever and ever, but I've been in Australia since 1996. And I just wanted to recap a few things that have already happened since that time. In 1997, I distinctly remember this day. I was going for a job interview when the Hong Kong stock market, or the Asian stock market, crashed. And that was supposed to put a stop to our property market at the time. Well, nothing happened after the crash. In 1999, we had this scare of, Y2K bug. And it was supposed to crash. All the computers and planes were literally supposed to fall out of the sky. So, that was another scare at the time. I'm just trying to give you all these different kind of scares that we've had in the past, and we've lived to tell the tale, and the property market has still gone up. So in 2000, we introduced GST, and which was followed by 5 interest rate rises, which were going to hurt our property markets. Well, as far as I remember, this property markets actually took off in 2000, after 2000. In 2011, we had 9/11. 9/11 happened, and the world declared war on terror. So that was supposed to bring everything down too. In 2002, Australia became involved in Gulf War, which was followed by Bali bombing the same year. In 2004, I found out what a tsunami was. Honestly, I had no idea what a tsunami was until 2004. When it happened, I looked it up in a dictionary, and now it seems like a natural phenomenon, and it happens all the time. 2008, we had GFC hit us, and the markets were flat for a while. In 2009, economists predicted Australian property price bubble. They claim property values will crash by 20 to 40%. This is in 2009, mind you. In 2011, Australian property prices were so high that the bubble was about to burst. In 2012, I went to a free 3-day seminar. I like to call them pitch fest. You go to this free 3-day event, and one after another, you are pitched with one course or another, and you end up buying courses. And I'm no different. I bought all of them to study and understand what they were. And there was an economist there at that 3-day event, and that economist just talked down Melbourne like there was no tomorrow. Like, he came up with stats about there were 25,000 apartments coming out on the market in 2012, and the apartment market would crash, and this would crash, and it was all doom and gloom for Melbourne. And I was very upset at the time because I went and saw this economist really talk Melbourne down, and I came and I said, wow, I can't really do anything because it's not in my control anymore. I can't do anything because the economy is like this, the Melbourne's like this, and I didn't want to travel to mining towns at the time, so I can't do anything. I threw my hands up in the air, and I shook them around like I just didn't care, but it depressed me, and but it didn't stop me. It did depress me for a short while, and then I got back on my feet. So, and in 2013 to 2015, Melbourne, Sydney property prices skyrocketed after I saw this guy talk down Melbourne. So, in 2015, we've seen the end of resources boom, or is it? If you want to feel good, I'll give you a link to an article. You can go and have a look at it. What you also got to understand is this: resources boom had 3 phases. Number 1, phase 1 lasted for about 80 years and it peaked in 2011. Phase 2, overlapping investment boom lasted for another 6 years, with 400 billion worth of resources projects. Overall, business investment spending peaked in the last quarter of 2012 at an astonishing 19% of GDP. The phase 3, we are well aware that resource prices are still falling from their 2011 peak, and that mining investment spending is rapidly coming to an end. But according to Mark Cully, he's the chief economist again of the Federal Department of Industry and Science, the production boom is set to last far longer than the other booms that have already happened. So if you wanna feel good about it, you can have a look at this article, which is on sydneymorningherald.com.au under business, and have a look at this article which talks about the resources boom and where it is at the moment. So yeah, that's what people do. They get caught out into a lot of negativity that the media spits out and the economists predict, but then they're not all 100% right. So, but great developers, they know exactly where to start. So they cover the downside and they maximize their upside. And how do they do that? They basically keep their eye on the bigger picture and have a working understanding of property economics. And I'll explain you the things that you got to understand what they are. But if you do want to feel good, go to this page, facebook.com/property development system, and I'll show you. There is an article here that I shared recently about 10 reasons to feel positive about the Australian economy. Have a read of this article. It's quite good. Plus, you can get in touch with me. You can I post out a few things. People comment on them, and we can interact with each other. So if you are interested in like this page, and also you can read this article about different things that'll make you feel good about the Australian economy. It's not all doom and gloom. So remember that. And a developer will always understand that a deal's a deal. If it stacks up, it stacks up. And this has not come out of my mouth. Well, it did come out of my mouth, but they are not my words. My mentor, Bob Anderson, told me that a deal's a deal. If it stacks up, it stacks up. And somehow it stuck with me. And now I look at deals in isolation, and I explain that in my course, the way I do it. So a great developer will understand how economics works. They would understand a working knowledge. When I say a working knowledge, it doesn't mean that you got to be an economist. You got to have a degree in economics. You just have to understand how these things work, and I explain them in my course. What they are, how they impact, and they're just basic understanding. Interest rate, inflation rate, how they impact on property prices, and what you got to watch out for. And you'll get a sense of where the economy is going, and you'll also get a sense of where we are going. And it includes things like house price index, Australian economy, and the Australian dollar. So you've got to understand property clock and market cycles. What are the different stages? You've got to also understand how you can listen for these signals, and what are the signals that you listen for, and how do you use technology or internet to understand all of this. Then you got to understand what the statistics say about every different suburb, different states, and how you can use them to understand and make decisions of where you're gonna go, what areas you're gonna go after. So these are things that you gotta know. All great developers will know them, and you'll also understand capital growth and how you identify capital growth suburbs. I give away a lot of calculators and everything with my course, and you can just punch in numbers and understand how they work. You got to understand what the demographics are and why do people move, and how to find out where they are moving now. So if your example, you are developing in XYZ suburb, you need to understand if there are people moving out of there, if there are people moving in there, how to find that information, and how to use that information to your advantage. And then over here we pick up all these signals of what's going on, but then you got to validate all these signals and see how they work. And then in my course I actually teach people how they can automate the entire process. So that's what great developers do. They understand how these things work and how they can take advantage of technology and the knowledge that they need to have to make better decisions.